Super, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to see you. And so fun because I get to talk to you at sort of these different stages of your
hmm
career. Because
Yeah.
the last time we did this show, the question was, when are you going to retire?
Yeah.
Almost 3 years in, give me your retirement assessment.
Woo. It's great.
Yeah.
Like I feel like zoomed out, I look on it, I'm like, this is going well. But it's weird. It's definitely weird. It's weird not playing. It's weird not being an athlete. It's strange to have to say, oh, I'm a former player as opposed
hmm
to a current. So I'm still adjusting to that. But so far so good.
But you are so busy and so entrenched in so many different things. Of course, you aren't athlete right now, but what do you think you are, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So this is what I'm noticing. The way that I played the game as a point guard,
Mhm.
I was setting things up, making sure people were in the right spot at this, at the right time, making sure we were running the play right so everybody could be set up for success. Like
Yeah.
that really became my identity as a player. I always had it, but then especially, in the last couple of years of my career. And who does that in this media world? A producer. So whether it's on the podcast that I'm doing, and other, whether it's in front of camera, behind camera, I'm noticing that like production part of my brain is still coming out. So the point guard, I guess, the point guard part of
Yeah.
my brain is now coming out in this like production way.
What do you think is that trait? Meaning, like, I remember once I was listening to this interview that Idris Elba did, and he was saying that our jobs are just the ways that we translate our skills.
hmm
So, like, yes, you are like a producer or you are a point guard, but there is an underlying trait that allows you to be those things.
Yeah.
What is that trait?
So I think for me, um, it's two things. One, I think this was just like how I was raised, probably just something innate that was inside of me that then, through different coaches, people who saw it in me helped it grow.
Mhm.
But I think naturally, I do like to make sure other people are comfortable. I think just naturally, that's like a part of, like I said, like the fabric of who I am. And then the other part of it was having, like I said, these coaches, people see that in me.
Mhm.
And then what I started to realize was, oh, when I can help my teammates be their best selves, that only makes me be able to be my best self, not
Yeah.
the other way around. That just never worked for me as a basketball player. I was never going to go out there and like try to get mine and then figure out the other parts. It always had to be in the reverse order. Make
Yeah.
sure the team is flowing, and then that's where my skill set could shine. So I guess you could argue in a way it's like selfish of me to be unselfish,
Yeah,
but
no,
it
I
worked
hear what
out.
you're saying. Kind of like the universe. I
Yeah.
understand that. So, at what point, and not to be presumptuous, maybe you always felt this way, but at one point in retirement did you say, I'm happy? Because,
Ooh.
there's maybe this thought of, can I be happy without playing?
Yeah. I have always felt very fulfilled by my career. I don't have many regrets. Of course, you're going to always regret like the game you lost in, 2001 in college when Notre Dame beat you in the Final Four. So you're always going to have
What's the date? What's the
uh, you're always going to have those.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, I'm incredibly fulfilled when I look back on my career. I played to the absolute end, but
Mhm.
not too far where I looked crazy out there.
Yeah.
Not too far where people were like, what is she doing out there?
Yeah.
But like right to the exact moment where I knew it was time. So because of that, I don't really have a big pull. Is it strange? Like I said, yes,
hmm
because it's an adjustment. It's an identity. It's you're adapting, but I don't have a pull to
Yeah.
get back out there in any real way. Every now and then it rears its head, but not in any real way. So I feel very lucky for
hmm
that, to be honest. Not a lot of people have that. It's definitely a sense of closure. But yeah, so in that regard, I am happy.
Yeah. Because what you're sort of speaking to also is just the power of like choice.
Yeah.
Like you made this choice
Mhm.
as opposed to it being made for you for whatever external reasons. What has retirement taught you about time?
That we are at the heart, we're all kind of like our toddler versions. Like, what do we always hear about? If you have people like my sister has kids, I don't have kids myself, but we all hear about when people, new parents, like, oh, I got to keep the schedule. Nap time's at this time. They got to eat at this time. And you're like, come on, you can't. And then you get to a point for me as a retired athlete where I didn't have a schedule now. And by the way, for the first like 6 months, that was amazing. I got to just do whatever I want, eat whatever I want, whenever I want,
Yeah.
sleep, don't sleep. It didn't matter. But then very quickly you realize, I did anyways, having a schedule it just allows for a lot. It allows for, and for me, it allows for peace.
Hmm.
It allows, when you have a certain expectation of your day, it allows me to settle in a little bit differently. From there, it actually allows for more creativity. For me personally, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel as chaotic when I have a schedule.
Mhm.
So yeah, I realize I'm actually just a toddler.
Okay, we all
I
are.
need a sketch.
Yeah, I totally get it. I read this quote as we talk about age, and you said that a doctor once told you that you have the knee of a 75-year-old.
Yeah.
Do you think about what that knee will look like when you're 75, when you're 50? And I guess what I'm really asking is this sort of trade-off that you make with your body
Hmm.
when you decide to do what you do, and if there's any fear in that.
Yeah. No fear. I don't feel that now. I don't remember feeling it while I was playing. It was always just about how can I get this knee? It's my left knee. Like, how can I get this thing in a place where I
Mm.
can play?
Yeah.
Like, I'll do whatever I have to do that. There is a trade-off in that, I can't straighten my knee all the way. I can't bend it all the way. This is something Candace Parker and I talk about all the time. We've got our knees. They don't look that great, but they got us through.
Yeah.
And there's certain aches and pains with that just in your daily life. Forget basketball, in my daily life.
Yeah.
But would I do it the exact same all over again? Absolutely. And when I'm 50, 75, whatever age, this thing will probably be metal by then. I'll be getting it replaced. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I love it. Shout out to Candace, by
Yeah.
the way. She always has a knee joke.
Yeah.
Every now and then
Gotta
you
lean
get
in.
one from Candace. I want to talk to you just topically because the NBA playoffs are going on right now. I have a few questions for you, mainly just about the Pacers,
Hmm.
because I had a conversation with Tyrese Haliburton during the first round of the playoffs, and he told me that he has had extensive discussions with you about when to be a facilitator versus when to be a scorer. How have you seen some of those conversations manifest for Tyrese Haliburton in the playoffs?
Yeah. Well, clearly he's figured it out. Clearly he's figured it out. I think my favorite part about watching Tyrese in this run is yes, the clutch play, the big moments, but it's been a little up and down at times. And that's the reality. I think a lot
Mhm.
of times you talk about top players, you talk about all stars, and you see their great play, but it always comes with a bad quarter, a bad game, a bad stretch. And it's really how you respond to that. That's, to me, that's always the differentiator between like good players and great players
Yeah.
who can respond to the tough stretches, because we all have them. And I think you're seeing it in real time, not just in series, but in games
Yeah.
where he maybe not has the best stretch ever, but he's finding ways to win the game. He's hitting the big shot. He's finding his teammates. I love the pace that they play with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Jenny Busek, I'm gonna give a quick shout out. She's an assistant for
Mm-hmm.
the Pacers, has worked with Rick both in Indiana and Dallas. But there was a time there where she had worked with him, but then came and was the head coach of the Storm. And we basically ran a lot of the same stuff, played a very similar style. And so I have so much respect for Rick, the staff, Jenny, and the pace that they
Mm-hmm.
play with, because they really do wear teams down. And when we won in 2018 and 20, that's the exact same mantra. So Tyrese had a quote at the end
Wow.
of game one, something to the effect of, because they were down 19 to the Knicks, and something
Mm-hmm.
to the effect of like, we knew we would wear them down. Like, you have to play the long game. So even in those stretches, you're going to wear them down eventually. And I'm a Knick fan, so this is difficult. But if you watched the end of regulation and overtime,
Yeah.
that's essentially what happened. And that's exactly what we would say when we were on our
Really?
playoff runs in the WNBA.
Okay, so take me a little bit more into how you all are using that pace to
Mhm.
your advantage and how you're seeing it for the Pacers as well.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people can connect with the idea that you're going to wear a team down physically by being physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
By being aggressive with them. Again, the physicality piece. And that usually comes in the form of like bigger, stronger players.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a post player you have, or maybe it's just the way you play defense, like you get up into people. And I think people think like, oh, they're going to wear you down because they're just physically dominating. There's a whole other way to wear a team down, and you never even have to touch them. And it's by playing with this pace, whether it's picking up full court for 48 minutes, which I know the Pacers do, whether it's getting the ball out quick, getting into transition. And then the other part of pace is in the half court,
Mm-hmm.
again, playing with pace, but moving in a way that's read and react. And when you have a read and react offense that you're comfortable in, you can play faster, and it just wears teams down. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't notice it in the first quarter, and you don't notice in the second. You probably don't notice in the third, but late in the fourth,
It's coming.
it's coming.
Yeah.
And there'd be times in the WNBA with the Seattle Storm, it'd be late in the fourth, and we'd be hearing the other team breathe, and we'd be like, "We got them! Like, keep going, we got them."
So when you're watching that game, you're not surprised about what happens there in the fourth. You can see it coming.
You can see it coming. It doesn't mean it's always going to happen that way,
Right.
but you can see it coming because the Pacers, whether they're up 10, down 10, they play the same. And that's always going to catch up.
Hmm.
It just is.
So you talk about what it does to the opponent, but like, how do you have to keep up with that pace? What does it take
Yeah.
out of you?
That starts in training camp. This isn't
Yeah.
like, you're not like, okay, guys, today we're going to run fast. Like, that's not, oh, this game we're
Yeah.
going to do that. That's not how it works. It is something that the same way you might work on your 3-point shooting, the same way you might work on pick and roll defense, you are working on your conditioning to play at that pace literally every single day.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually know the Pacers, they had a bit of a break from their last series to the Knicks series.
Yeah.
And that was something I know that they were a little concerned about. You have this it's hard to keep up that pace in practice. Like, who wants to run that much? In games, it's easy.
Right.
But you have to. So that was something I know that they were talking about.
That is so fascinating. I want to bring up more of sort of what Tyrese said about that conversation with you, because he said to me, what I also talked to her about is how sometimes your IQ can get in the way of what the game needs from you.
Okay.
What do you think he means by that?
Oh, man. Your IQ can get in the way of what the game may need.
Because it was sort of in this context
Yeah.
of, okay, when do I attack? When do I score? And when am I facilitating? But also when I am saying, okay, but I know right now the right thing for me is to make the pass because that is how I learned to play.
Yeah.
But you're saying, okay, but that's not what is being called on for me right now. And I
Yeah.
feel like we're seeing so many moments where he is going against what he's maybe been like taught, because that's just not what the situation is presenting.
Yeah. So basically, when you are a high IQ player, when you have, and for Tyrese, as you mentioned, kind of figured out that balance as a point guard between facilitating and then calling your own number in a sense, or more so being more aggressive.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to like call your own number, but just being more aggressive. The part that you have to incorporate into that high IQ is the feel. And that's what's like dueling. It's dueling mindsets. So the IQ might tell you, like you said, to do this, but you have to feel the game simultaneously. Because the feel of the game is really going to give you an answer at certain times. And those two things, when you can essentially marry them, that's a sweet spot.
Yeah. How long did it take you to marry them?
Oh gosh. Probably, I mean, like I feel like I always had a version of it. And it was almost like it didn't take me, it wasn't about mastering, it was about like refining year after year. But I've always said, it's like, to me, a prime is when it's like when your experience and your understanding has excelled in a way, usually based on age.
Yeah.
But you haven't gotten too old where your physical starts like, sloughing off a little bit.
Yeah.
So when those two collide at the right time, that's when you've mastered it. That's when the refinement is at its best. And that's why towards the end of my career, probably like the last like 5-6 years, so late 30s into my 40s, I just knew if I could keep my physical just at a certain point. I always said, I'm not trying to beat Father Time.
Yeah.
Like, just let me tie him.
Yeah.
If I could just stay where I am, I knew my experience, my knowledge of the game was only going to increase year by year. And that was really fun for me later in my career to have that.
I love that. And that makes sense. It's the pairing that really gets you to that ultimate place you want to go. I mean, I love just hearing you passing down the knowledge because, Paige says you're gatekeeping. So,
Nah.
So, I mean, what are the hair products? What's going on? Are you not sharing how to do the slick back?
What? I'm always a pay it forward type. She hasn't asked.
Yes.
You got to ask. That's it.
But
you got
was
my
there
number?
a key? Was there a key to
So
keeping it slick?
It was so simple.
Yeah.
Water and hairspray.
Okay.
And a really good, a lot of bristles brush, if you will. Not the ones that's going to get the knots out. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of bristles.
I
I'm
got you.
sure there's
See,
a name.
answers are there. Sue has
That's all
it.
you
She
need.
knows it. Congratulations are in order, by the way. The first managing director of the women's national team. I want to know, what is the process of obtaining that role? You know, we see the announcement, but I'm like, when do those conversations begin? And what was the genesis?
Yeah. So really quickly after I retired, I was on the board of directors for USA Basketball. So I was already in the mix like right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those that don't know, the men, they've always had a managing director. Jerry Colangelo, Grant Hill now
Mm-hmm.
has that role. But the women, we always did it with a committee. So 5 or 6 people, like essentially get in a room and have the conversations on who's going to be the coach, who's going to be on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I retired, we still had the committee and they were already in the swing of, choosing a World Cup team, which had just happened in 2022. And then of course, gearing up for Paris. So it wasn't the time to change anything.
Yeah.
So the conversations at that point, more so like going in to Paris, like into that year, was really just like, hey, do you want to be on the committee? Is this something you'd be interested in? And to be honest, at that point, I was still too close.
Yeah.
Like I was just a little too close to it all. And I didn't feel right for me to be in that room. So it was a quick conversation.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the board of directors, we're good.
Yeah.
But then after Paris is really when the conversations around moving to the managing director became like real.
Yeah.
And I think for USA Basketball, it was just they had seen how it worked out with the men. And they thought it's time to switch the model for the women. And then that's when conversations got more serious. I did initially say, I'm good.
Yeah.
I like my life right now. I don't need to add anything to
Another
it.
job.
Yeah, exactly. But the more I sat with it, and really the more I had conversations with Grant and just hearing his experience, the good and the bad, right? Like the pros and the cons, because of course
Yeah.
there's going to be both. It just became clear that I had a passion for it. I was interested in it. There was a pull. And then B, that I was likely the right person for it.
Yeah.
And so the combination, I would say around shortly after the holidays, let's call it sometime in January, I gave the old call and I was
Yeah.
like, it's a done deal. Let's do this.
Tell me more about that. Why you're the right person for it.
So I obviously played USA basketball my entire career. So I've played in every type of situation you could imagine, not just Olympics, not just World Cups, training camps, qualifiers, literally you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just really been a part of so many different experiences that I know I can pull from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what first of all, there's another part to this, which I do feel in the totality of my career, I've gained a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And what that respect really is I'm pretty consistent in how I show up. I always put the winning first,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really all that matters. And I'm going to do as a player, I was going to do whatever the team needed for that. And I think I, like I said, just gained a lot of respect from a lot of different people for that. And that kind of tiptoes around integrity as well, which is a big part
Sure.
of this position. But back to the playing part of it, what I bring is just an understanding of what it is to bring a group of really talented players together and to figure it out and to win gold medals. I have firsthand experience of that.
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what it takes. I know how hard it is. And to be honest, I know how uncomfortable it can be.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a very uncomfortable experience. I've already said this on record. It's probably the most uncomfortable basketball I've ever played in my life because we don't get a lot of training time.
Yeah.
You don't get time to mesh, to become a team, to develop that chemistry. You have to speed that up in a way where you're just going to be a little uncomfortable. And I always tell players, I'm like, if you're uncomfortable, you're actually doing it right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think you put all that together. I think I'm just in a unique position right now, having just played as recently as I have, but also having that experience and knowledge to pull from.
So tell me the kind of like prototype or blueprint of player that thrives in that sort of uncomfortability.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, if you can kind of just accept it,
Mm-hmm.
not fight it, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
That's half the battle. Because the reality is your role is just going to be different. All of our roles.
Because that's the hard part.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
The
might
role.
you might go from, I don't know, shooting 20 shots on your WNBA team to getting a couple.
Mm-hmm.
You might go from, a leading scorer to now we need you to be a defensive stopper. This is hard. I'm telling you,
Mhm.
uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Even as a point guard, my role in that regard didn't change a lot. But what was asked of me offensively, totally different.
Yeah.
What was asked of me defensively, totally different. I mean, they had me picking up full court a lot of times. This is not my thing,
Yeah.
but it's what we needed to do to
Yeah.
win. So I think not fighting it and being open to it is like I said, probably even more than half the battle. And then
Yeah.
from there, you have to trust and have a lot of trust in yourself, in your skill set, that at some point, what you do bring to the table, A, is unique from
Mhm.
everybody else. That's why you're there. And B, will get to shine.
Yeah.
It just might not shine in the exact way you're used to.
Right. But it'll be shine, especially when that shining is winning.
Yeah,
Then you're like, okay, this
exactly.
I
Yeah.
can
And
do
that thing
this.
does shine. That's for
When
sure.
I saw the news, I actually thought about the last interview we did because we had a conversation sort of around Candace Parker in USA, or
Mhm.
we talked about when Nneka didn't make the team and sort of the reactions to that. You've been winning your whole life, so you know about tough situations.
Yeah.
But how will you deal with being the bad guy? Because you
Yeah.
will inevitably
Be the
be
bad
the
guy.
bad guy.
The way I think about it is, this goes without saying, but I'll say it. First and foremost, I am choosing a team based on winning a gold
Yep.
medal.
Hmm.
Period. The end.
Hmm.
Like nothing will ever be personal. It's never about that. It's just about winning the gold medal. But did want to say it just
Yeah.
to have it on the record.
Hmm.
Um, you know, that is the hard part. The thought of that is the hard
Hmm.
part. So the one thing that I do bring from my player experience, which I think is unique and nobody has, I've never been a coach or a GM where I've had to make these decisions and I've had to sit people down and have those conversations. I've never had to be the bad guy in that sense. So that is new. And I'm going to be leaning on a lot of people. Like the one thing I know is there's things I don't know.
Yeah.
And I need to go into this experience having like that part to it because that's where I can ask Grant, right? That's where I can talk to the people at USA Basketball and the staff there and figure out A, what roster makes the most sense to win a gold medal, and then B, how to handle being the quote unquote bad guy.
Yeah.
Because it's sad, but it is inevitable.
Hmm.
It is inevitable. And I think at the end of the day, I just have to trust in myself that I'm going to choose a team that's going to win a gold medal. And that's the most important thing.
I feel like I know the answer to this, but I just want to hear it. What do you think will be more difficult, choosing the coach or choosing the players?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. The one thing I'll say about choosing the players, again, based on my experience, first and foremost, you can't do it now.
Right.
It somehow it always just ends up showing itself
Hmm.
as the competition gets closer. You can't get ahead of yourself on that. You really can't. And luckily you don't have to,
Right.
right? I mean, there's certain cutoffs where you have to have the roster
Hmm.
in by a certain time, but you generally can't get ahead. Sadly, injuries can happen, things change. So you can't get ahead of yourself. But the coach, you have to choose the coach like almost now
Yeah.
for the next, what is now 3 years.
Yeah.
So that actually has a different, I think, pressure to it or
For
a different
sure.
stress level to it because
Hmm.
a lot can happen in 3 years. So you just have
Yeah.
to go on like who you think is gonna be the right person for the job for that stretch of time. So it's
Hmm.
like a little bit of a different challenge.
For sure. So you've had four coaches during
Yeah.
your time in the Olympics. What does it take to be a good coach in that specific environment? And also, what is being a bad coach in that environment?
Um, well, I'll start with the good part. I think when you're the coach of USA basketball, similar to what I just said about being a player, you have to be okay being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
You have to be okay um, with things not going exactly how you want all the time because we just don't have enough time to get it all in.
Yeah.
So you have to have a little bit of that. I think another part, the good news is similar to the player pool, we have again embarrassment of riches in terms of talent. Yeah,
Absolutely.
in coaching, which makes the decision hard, but I'd rather have this problem. And so on some level, the coach's X's and O's are going to be great.
Hmm.
There's no coach that would get this job that doesn't have that part. So then I think the next thing you look at is a little bit of like player management, personality management. Like, how does the coach um, communicate with the players on what their role is going to be, on
Hmm.
what they need from them, on what they need for them to be to make the team successful. So that's another, I think, part that I have, my eyes open to.
This is exciting, though.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's like, I'm sure there's very few times now in your basketball career where you feel like you're doing something new.
Yeah,
because you've done it
this
all
is new.
and seen it all. But this probably feels like an exciting, real element of newness that
Yeah,
you're maybe not used to. That is, like I said, exciting, but also a little like, okay, it's going to be fun figuring out how exactly I do this the right way and the
yeah,
way that feels like true to me.
yeah.
So I love you have this new venture.
Well, just to add to that, the
Yeah.
other cool part is, and Grant kind of opened my eyes to this, is, when you're at the Olympics, or I don't want to get ahead of myself, we do have the World Cup.
Yeah.
So when you're at these
Mhm.
events, these major events, you can also talk to the coach. You can also be a little bit of a confidant in a way.
Sure.
And in that way, now I get to bring all my expertise and experience in terms of the basketball part and what
Hmm.
I see like on the floor. So you also get to flex that muscle a little bit in this position.
You may not even know the answer to this and not to put you on the spot, but is this role like in any ways in your head like a stepping stone is the wrong term, but like is doing this a way to see if you would like to do something else like this?
I don't think so.
No.
No, I think this is pretty unique.
Okay.
Yeah, I think are you talking about like if I want to go into coaching or front office
Yeah,
work
coaching,
or
front office. I know I heard you mention before that like when it comes to like ownership for like the Sonics, if it comes back, you'd
yeah,
like to do that.
of course.
But anything that's in line with this, that you're almost seeing what it is like.
Right now, no.
No.
But
Okay.
like we circle back.
Yeah, we're
When I
circle
come back
back.
in 3 years.
Hey, listen, life is long. Your thoughts evolve. I get it. I just don't know if you know right now, but
No.
this is gonna be really fun.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
I want to talk about some current W. I heard you obviously talking about Caitlin Clark. You were like, she has a year under her belt now. She
Mhm.
gets the league. She's gonna be dangerous.
Yep.
Now that we have seen a season of what Caitlin Clark can do as a pro, like when you think about what her ceiling is, like what can Caitlin Clark be to the W?
I mean, she's already it's like already happening. She's
Hmm.
already breaking, records left and right. The way that this kid fills a box score is unprecedented.
Yeah.
I think what we all want to see from her is that translating into championships, because that's ultimately, for me anyways, how you get, graded, judged. But for her, I mean, if I were to put like a statistical kind of benchmark on this, and I've talked about this with like Ryan Ruocco, Rebecca Lobo, she could end up being like one of, I think Courtney Vandersloot at one point averaged a double double with points and assists,
Mhm.
but Caitlin might be the first to do it with over 20 points and over 10
Wild.
assists. Like Sloot didn't average over 20 points,
Mhm.
so a 20 and 10 points, assists, double double to average that over a season. I don't see why she wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, it feels
She's
very
showing it.
much so, yeah,
Yeah.
like happening in front of our eyes. I think everyone thought, Caitlin Clark is going to come into the league and be outstanding, but
Mhm.
did you see it this quickly?
Good question. I think both, like yes and no. I knew the physicality, which obviously took on a whole other like life of its own.
Hmm.
Physicality meaning you're now playing against like grown professional adults. And
Yeah.
so there's just an adjustment.
Hmm.
I knew that was going to take her time, but I have to say, come All-Star break, maybe even a little bit before that, she had already quickly figured it out. I knew from watching her in college, a lot of us knew she couldn't really go right as well as she could go left. So what'd you see in the first couple months of the season? Everybody forced her right.
Hmm.
And to her credit, by All-Star break, she figured that out too.
Yeah.
So it was like the things that I thought were going to be troubling or give her trouble, they did. But she figured that out much
Yeah.
quicker than I think anyone could have anticipated.
Hmm.
Which is really a credit to probably like how her mind works, like how her basketball mind works,
Yeah.
right? To be able to lock in and figure that out, especially as a rookie, it was impressive.
Because it feels like that sort of what you're speaking to is sort of that separator when it comes to those kind of players
Yep.
like in this league, because it is truly fascinating watching her figure this out in
Mhm.
this time. Because similarly to you, I was like, obviously Caitlin Clark is going to be good, but just the rate at how it has happened
Yeah.
and how she continues to make a step. But it feels like every few months she hits this different gear in a
Mhm.
crazy way. It's really, really fun to watch. Do you have a favorite WNBA player?
Oh man. A favorite WNBA player. They're all retired. I like the OGs.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh. I mean, listen, it's hard not to say
Mhm.
like Caitlin Clark. It's
Yeah.
hard not to say a
Hmm.
lot of these younger players. It's been fun to watch Paige get her WNBA career going. Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
And this isn't just because it's a Seattle Storm player.
Okay.
I love Neko Gumake.
Yes.
I mean, I just really appreciate
Hmm.
a player, and probably because I see a little bit of myself in her in this way,
Hmm.
not the game,
Yeah.
but just the mindset. You just know exactly what you're going to get from her. So consistent, shows up every day. It doesn't mean you always hit every shot, doesn't mean you always play your best, but the effort and what you know you're going to get from her in that regard is so consistent. It's that steady Eddie that you just love having on your team.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's a good answer. I went into, so I did some of the sideline for Unrivaled,
Mhm.
and I went into Unrivaled with Asia Wilson's my favorite player, and
Yeah.
she still is my favorite player. But Caitlin Clark is also probably my
It's
favorite
hard to pick
player.
one.
Asia and Caitlin, but I left Unrivaled so obsessed with Chelsea Gray.
Yeah,
I'm like, I think Chelsea Gray is my new favorite WNBA
I
player.
see why.
It is so every pass
I know.
you think there's no way she just did that. And there's no way it worked. Like it's so crazy watching her. One thing that stuck out to me about Chelsea Gray as we were having these conversations is she said, I have to tell my teammates you might get a black eye, but I have to give you that black eye for you to
Just to
always be
learn.
ready. She's
Yeah.
like, and I also have to know I'm going to have turnovers, but I need those turnovers for us to get to where we need to be for our connection to grow in that way. What is it you think about Chelsea Gray that just makes her shine as a facilitator?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I call that the tax. We all got to pay taxes in some ways. And as
Yeah.
a point guard, the ones that they drop is just a tax. You got to pay that tax because you know, as you're saying with Chelsea, like they get hip to it, they learn, and then they're gonna give you all kinds of assists.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of a tax you got to pay. Okay, what makes Chelsea special is first and foremost her ability to see the floor. And I don't just mean like she has eyeballs and is looking, right? It's the ability to like anticipate. It's the ability to read defenses simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is probably just something she's always had. Yeah, you get better as you get older because you've been in so many situations and you can kind of recognize them quicker, but she probably always had that. What I think allows that to shine, like that particular part of her game, is her ball handling. And to be honest, her body type. She creates a lot of space. So when you're guarding her, you really, first of all, the handle is tight. You've seen her do her warm
Yes,
ups.
it's
Like
crazy.
that thing is on a string.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're guarding her, the way she turns her back to you, you can't get to the ball, but she always has her eyes up looking. And so the combination of that allows that like ability to see and to anticipate, it allows it to shine. It really
Yeah.
is the combination. And then you add the fact that the way she shoots her pull-ups, the little fade she has, that's just more distance that's being created. It's
Yeah.
really difficult to get like a real contest on her
Mm-hmm.
because she creates so much distance like with the handle and then with that fade.
Yeah, and
So
won so many games
so
unrivaled
many
off that fade,
games.
and
I
obviously
know.
in the league.
It's
But
like you know where she's trying to
yeah,
go, and you know what? She still gets there.
yeah.
And that's a great player though.
Did you watch? I assume you did the tourney, the one-on-one tourney.
Of course I did.
Okay, Prime Sue Bird. She can call out one current W player for a 1v1. Who you calling out?
Who am
Who
I
you got?
calling out? Is this where I put Stewie? I'm like, Stewie got taken down in the first round. Is that my chance? No, I'm not calling out anybody.
Which, by the way, I do think there has to be categories.
Yeah.
Like we
It
gotta
was a Cleopatra.
yeah,
Was like, what's
like
up? Why are you giving me all the talls?
exactly.
What's all these big girls doing here?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
disclaimer, I do think there should be categories. But yes, who you calling out?
Oh man, who am I calling out? I'm gonna call out my favorite player of all time, Jen Azey. By the way, I was lucky. Jen is my favorite player.
Yeah.
She's my see it, be it moment when I was a kid. I've
Okay.
had the opportunity to tell her that, which was one of the best days ever. And I did get to play against her early WNBA years. She was in the league, I think we were in the league at the same time for like 2 seasons.
Mhm.
And she blocked my shot like multiple times. And I'm like, we're the same height. How is this happening? She just had my timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll call out Jenny.
All right, Jen. Any current player?
Nah.
Current player? You're like,
I'm
I'm
like,
gonna
I'm
go with
smarter than
someone.
that. I'm smarter than that.
It's like,
I
you're
would
like,
have
Taylor,
loved
I'm
to.
a Potter now. I get
Yeah.
it.
Literally.
Yes.
I would have loved to have played in it. I feel like
Yeah.
for me personally, I'm not a one-on-one player.
Yeah.
I'm tiny. It's the whole thing. But it would have been like funny.
Yeah.
You got to like throw a real small one in there
Yeah,
and
for
let her go to
sure.
work, you
I
know?
agree.
I
That
think it
was
would have been
so exciting,
fun.
though. I
Yeah.
loved
Oh, it
the
was
tournament.
great.
Oh, it
Oh,
was,
I was all into it.
yeah. I loved everything about the experience of Unrivaled, but they made so many different innovative decisions
Mhm.
that I just think are great for the game, of course. I want to talk to you about, I saw the you and Diana Taurasi, once very short-lived, talked about teaming up, playing
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by stories like this.
Mhm.
Is there any other almost pairing that we don't know about, or trade that could have happened that didn't, that we're
Yeah.
just not privy to?
No, nothing that I don't think I've spoken about publicly. That was definitely the only pairing that I
Hmm.
ever had like a really semi-serious conversation
Yeah.
about. There was a free agency. I mean, but I've told this story before where I was a free agent. Jewel had just been drafted, so the 2015 season had just finished.
Mhm.
We didn't do so great.
Yeah.
And I had a moment where it was like, am I ever going to play in the playoffs again?
Mm.
Right? I'm 35 years old. I've way less years ahead of me than I do behind, am I ever going to play in the playoffs again? And so that was like a question. And I remember exactly where I was when the draft lottery was happening. It was basically the Brianna Stewart sweepstakes.
Yeah.
And, we had a lot of balls in that lottery, which was great. And I was with some friends and I was actually out and the
Mhm.
TVs were on. I asked to put the TV on. And in the moment where it was like, okay, and the number, they go backwards. So it's like
Yeah.
then the number 2 pick goes to. So when it didn't go to us, which meant we got the number 1 pick, I was like, guys, I'm staying.
Yeah. I'm a
But
C player.
yeah,
Yeah.
seriously. In that
Yeah.
moment, I was like, I'm staying. And
I
I've
love
said
that.
this time and time again. Stewie and Jewel, like, quite literally saved my career. Quite literally saved my career. I didn't even care if we got to the playoffs. I now just had a whole new reason to show up to work every day. And so they literally saved my career. They kept me young, saved my career. We won 2 rings.
Yeah.
I it couldn't have ended any better, and it's definitely because of them.
That's such a beautiful story. I'm sure
I
you've
would
been
have
able
left
to
if we didn't
tell.
get that number 1 pick.
Yeah.
No, no, no. No, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it would
sure
have been a
you've been able
thought.
to tell them
Oh
that.
yeah. As
Yeah.
as often as I can.
Yeah. How
Absolutely.
does that just kind of forever bond you to these just like two women in a way that is just unique?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, it forever bonds us,
Hmm.
and that can never be broken. They're obviously no longer with the storm. And
Hmm.
I only bring that up to say what really connected us was I was the elder statesman. I was the one that had been there, done that, and could really kind of, um, give them as many tips, as many shortcuts, as many WNBA hacks, if you will, that I
Hmm.
could. And, the whole idea was for them to then take the reins and lead the Storm franchise, for the remainder of their career,
Yeah.
remainder of their careers. Obviously, it didn't pan out that way, but even still, I know the impact I had on them is in some ways immeasurable, but they also did it their own way,
Hmm.
which is always a big part. I think if you're going to be in any kind of like mentorship relationship,
Yeah.
you want to help and you want to guide, but they kind of have to figure it out on their own too. And so we just had I think, a really special way with each other. And then, like I said, the other part of it was the impact they had on me.
Hmm.
And I wasn't really expecting that. I didn't really
Yeah.
know that was going to be another part of this. So the minute we get together, even if a group chat, between the 3 of us gets started, I mean, it's just classic. It's like right where we left off.
That's so sweet.
Yeah,
I love
it's
it.
really amazing.
As you're talking about that, I remember we had this conversation about just that first year with Lauren Jackson
Yeah.
and how she didn't really like you.
Nah.
Did that experience maybe shape how you wanted to be as a
Oh,
vet?
as a vet.
And especially when it's just the new, fresh,
Hmm.
young talent that comes on a team with you.
Yeah. So the one thing I'll say about the Lauren situation was we were so close in age
Hmm.
that that's kind of what made it a little bit of like, oh, who's this new kid on? Like, this
Yeah.
is my block.
Yeah.
Who's this? Like, what's going on here? So that was unique because I mean, she was actually younger than me. So even though she
Yeah.
got drafted ahead of me, she was actually younger than me. So that was a little different. But I've certainly had my fair share of vets, older players,
Hmm.
5, 10, 15 years older than me. And so I had experiences with that. Honestly, some great, some not as great.
Yeah.
And I learned from them for sure. I
Hmm.
learned from them for sure. And I
Yeah.
think the thing, it still plays out to this day, and I totally get it. The thing that I've learned about that kind of dynamic, right? a younger player and older player. When you're the older player, you might even say to the younger player, like, anytime, reach out, here's my number. And they're going to go, okay. And they're never going to do it. They're never going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're the older player, you have to remember that telling them that one time isn't enough.
Yeah.
You don't want to annoy them and you don't want to bug them. You don't want to be the older player that's like constantly in their face, but you have to remember to like circle back on that.
Yeah.
And
And
I
make
get
sure they
it.
know you mean it.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. When I was a younger player and I had, the likes of Cheryl Swoops or Lisa Leslie or Dawn Staley being like, yo, if you have any questions, you're like, okay. And then
Yeah.
you never go back
Yeah.
because you're like a little scared or I don't know what it is, but you never go back.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I learned that I tried to use
Yeah.
in that relationship.
You and Megan had a really enlightening conversation just about the discourse around the W right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little out of control at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
To you, like, what is the line between things that we should talk about in the W that are
Mm-hmm.
additive to the game, even if it isn't something that is an X's and O's, but it is still additive to the game, and that line that completely takes the focus away from what is happening on the court?
I mean, that is the $1,000,000 question. I think that is what a lot of people, whether it's fans, whether it's media, have a hard, myself included. It's that subtle little nuance, that thin line. Because sadly, in women's sports, for a lot of reasons, once it does cross over, it's gone. We
Yeah.
can't even get it back. And it's hard to articulate. It's almost like you know it when you see it, but it's hard to articulate. I think a big part of it is people not understanding that our league, the WNBA, is physical and it's competitive the same way you've watched men's sports be physical and competitive for all these years. This is not new.
Mm-hmm.
All the little, fights or all the little moments where people like, do the stare down. This has been in our league from the jump. This has been in
Yep.
sports from the jump. It's the same for women and it doesn't have some deeper meaning to it. Is that to say that at times it might have some deeper meaning to it? Of course, there's been that too, because
Mm-hmm.
this is sports.
Right.
This is what we love about sports.
Yeah.
And so that has definitely been a big issue.
Because like the deeper meaning is no deeper meaning than the other deeper meanings. Like it is the same thing. And I think and I say this all the time. To me, what it is it is like people are incapable of not seeing women as women first.
Yeah.
So the reason that they are seeing this differently than what it is in the NBA or any other men's sport is simply just that you're looking at the NBA and you're seeing athlete, and you're looking at the WNBA and you're seeing woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that is obviously A, incorrect, but B, messing up how it is being discussed, because you aren't even allowing yourself to see it through the lens of what it is, which are people that are playing a sport, not
Literally.
like just women that are just out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is, I don't know how we get past that, because it feels like that has been the issue for quite some time when you're talking about women's sports generally.
Yeah. It's tough. And then, I mean, I can't even believe that we have to talk about this, but it's like the Twitter troll and bot situation is wild. And then the other part of it, and this is what Megan and I talked about the other day, we've talked about it the last couple of years even, or over the course of the last year, is the fact that a Twitter narrative probably becomes the mainstream story. And that just speaks to the lack of coverage that has been in the world of women's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we say like the new members of the media or the new fans,
Mm-hmm.
like that's what we're referring to, because you come in and you kind of believe everything you read. And that just would never happen in a men's sport.
Totally.
Nobody would ever, read. I mean, I guess NBA, what is it, Centel?
Yeah,
I guess some people do take
yeah,
that a little too far. Yeah, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But generally
no, I
speaking,
understand.
yeah,
We're
it wouldn't
also
just be like one person popping off on Twitter.
Yes.
And you would turn on whatever mainstream media you watch, and they'd be talking about it.
Yeah,
like there'd be an understanding of the full picture, and we never get. And I think that's to your point where they see women, we never get the full breadth of it.
mm-hmm.
It's just always in these little silos.
Totally. Yeah, and it's transparently, the more the media does this, like we are failing the women.
Hmm.
Like, you aren't allowing people to be the thing that they have worked for their
Yeah,
entire life because you're just completely seeing them as something else. And where it's a very, very dangerous, slippery slope if social media determines the stories that we tell.
100%.
Because social media isn't the world,
No.
but we allow it to be the topic of the day, which actually does translate to the world because that is how people are digesting what they're seeing.
Yeah.
And it's just the more and more we do that, I don't think people really recognize the repercussions of continuing to talk about it in that way. So I don't know. There has to be some kind of fix.
I
I don't
mean,
know what it is.
honestly, it's us having a conversation like this.
Mhm.
It's, I think what we're seeing now, we joke about being a podcaster, but yes, I am now a fully fledged podcaster. But it is the people that really do have that understanding are
Mhm.
now in front of the microphone a little bit more.
Yes.
Like Chene was very quick in the most recent,
Mhm.
Caitlin Clark, flagrant foul and Angel Reese. Chene was one of the people that got to speak on it,
Yeah.
which I thought was great. So having people that have microphones, like more microphones in front of their faces now is like one way to have that impact and have that change.
Totally. I want to talk about this idea of marketability
Okay.
because you so vulnerably and beautifully discussed how concerns about marketability was one of the things that held you back
Mhm.
from coming out. And that you were very cognizant of the fact that people believe like sex sells, or at least being sexy sells.
Yes.
What do you think that says about what we believe to be marketable, specifically when it comes to women's sports?
Yeah. Well, I think interestingly, my experience now, not just for myself, but like what I'm seeing is it's actually the opposite. I feel like what we're seeing now is the more authentic you are, the more true to yourself that you are,
Mm-hmm.
the more marketable that you are, the more people want to work with you. But what the subtle difference there is when I was younger, and like you said, I had this thing where like I can't come out, sex sells, I have to be a certain way. That was to be digestible. That was to be attractive. Not, I don't mean like the actual physical, but like people wanting to work with you. That was me or somebody like me wanting to be available to everybody,
Mm,
every brand, every company, every commercial, everything.
yeah.
And so what's interesting is when you're authentic to yourself, you might not be what one company or one brand is looking for, but you might be exactly what somebody else wants. And that's really what matters anyways. Like that's the
Yeah.
relationship you want to have in terms of your marketing. Those are the relationships you want to have. You
Yeah.
don't want to have to be fake to just be able to get them all. You want to have like whoever you are in the, for lack of a better lane you're in, you
Hmm.
want to team up with those companies, those brands.
Hmm.
So my mindset has shifted, but when I was coming up in all of this,
Yeah.
yes. And it was definitely, it felt like a vibe of, for me personally, the more girl next door I was, and the more I leaned into that, the more palpable I'd be for
Yeah.
all of these companies, the more people would want to work with me, the more, I don't know, fanfare I might get. That
Hmm.
was my version of like the sex sells, being the girl next door.
Yeah. How do you see authenticity show up in the W today?
Oh, it's everywhere
Yeah.
in a really wonderful way. Because
Hmm.
I think for so long we did have to deal with just trying to be something we weren't.
Hmm.
And maybe for some it hit, for some players it was their lane,
Yeah.
but for a majority of the league it wasn't. And now you're just really, the way I would say it is there's just a freedom to really just be yourself. Like whatever the full like spectrum
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
And you see it. You see it on people's social media, you see it in a league like Unrivaled, the way it was celebrated,
Totally.
whether you're, I don't even know, like Courtney Williams starting a pod with your dad, or you're one of the
Hmm.
moms who, luckily has now a caretaker for their child and they can be a mom essentially when they're not playing.
Yeah. I think one of the shifts that has happened in the W that I think is really beautiful. It's more subtle, but it's like very meaningful is it feels like there's no longer this I just feel lucky to be here,
Yeah.
which is probably more in line with what you felt like when you had first started.
Hmm.
But now, historically, I also think just as women are always trying to sort of get out of that idea of like, I'm not lucky to be here. I deserve to be here. I should be here. I'm getting the things that I should have.
Hmm.
That doesn't feel like it exists now. And I
Not
think
at
that
all.
is actually the most important difference that doesn't always get talked about.
Yeah, it doesn't exist at all. if I could put like a year on it, I would say around like 2018-ish, I started noticing a shift because I was on the executive committee. So all the CBA conversations and you're talking about a lot, you're teaching the young players. And I noticed a shift. A lot of the young players are like, no, we want charter flights. We're like, wait, we're just
What?
trying to get our own hotel rooms. But they had something about them. Now,
Mhm.
in the moment, were we going to get charter flights? Probably not.
Mhm.
But the way they were essentially like thinking big and not taking no for an answer,
Yeah,
it was, I mean, it changed how even the older players were looking at it. It really informed a lot of what we did in that CBA negotiation. And I noticed it right away. And I
I
think
love
it's
that.
really speaking to what you were saying, because not only were we for so long just like happy to have a league, there was another part of it where we're all making our money overseas. So we were just like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm making
Mhm.
my money over there.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Not that we didn't care. We obviously cared. We played in it,
Mhm.
even though we would like bag on it sometimes. We were showing up every season, ready to go.
Mhm.
So that it was just a totally different shift that happened. Again, if I had to guess, I'd say around 2018.
Yeah, I'm so happy it came though.
Yeah.
I'm like, you should be audacious. You should ask for exactly what you want.
Mhm.
And I just think for so long, it didn't even seem like the possibility existed to ask for what you
Yeah.
want.
Just happy to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is what I think about this moment. I actually think about celebrating the women because that is a mind shift that I think has been more of the incremental change that has led to right now.
Yeah.
I want to talk some Hall of Fame before we let you
Okay.
go. So on September 6th, you, Maya Moore, Sylvia Fowles, you get enshrined into the Hall of Fame. That's 10 WNBA titles, 3 finals MVPs, and 27 All-Star selections. Very easy argument there that this is the best class of women that we have seen up to this point. I don't know. Are you comfortable saying that?
That's a pretty good class.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you say it that way, I'm like, I mean, they're definitely holding up. I don't have any MVPs, so they're they're doing their job on that one. But
Yeah.
I contribute in other ways.
But I mean, just even hearing that out loud and
Yeah,
knowing that you are a part of that group, what sense of pride do you feel?
I feel so lucky to be going in with Maya and Sil. Not just because they're amazing players, not just because they're amazing people, of course.
Hmm.
I feel like it's so special to go in with people that you played with.
Yeah.
Like you really experienced the game of basketball and the journey that all this was for those of us in this generation. We got to experience that together. So Maya and Sil, I both played USA basketball with, like multiple teams, multiple times. All the things I mentioned earlier, they were all there too.
Yeah.
And Sil I actually played in Russia with. And that's a whole other situation because you're together 24/7. You're
Hmm.
living in a foreign country. So you really get to know somebody. So to be able to go in with them right now, because it hasn't really set in yet. Not
Really?
really. I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I guess the Hall of Fame is coming. This is crazy. But it hasn't like
Yeah.
really clicked.
Do you think it
That
won't be until you're there?
probably, yeah.
So what's the process of like you're writing your speech? Have you
Oh,
started?
no, I haven't started.
No, you're like,
No.
I'm just doing it's from the heart.
I don't know about from the heart, but
I love that. Okay, two more questions before I let you go. I would just like, can you contextualize for people how insanely good Maya Moore was? Because I do not know if people really get it. I don't
get
know if
it.
it's the playing the 8 years. I don't know if it's just like time, but she was like nothing we've seen.
No. God, how do I even explain it? Just could score at every level. I know that we say there's 3 levels, like Maya had like 8. It's like
So good.
you just so impossible to guard her. Really the only 2 ways to guard her were to find ways to, like double team or find ways to, or you literally just had to like go box and one. And you don't say that in the WNBA. You don't say that in professional
Yeah.
basketball. Like you don't say that. And that was literally what we would have to do at times. It was just so hard to guard her. Her size, I would say 6'1" ish, maybe 6'2" on a good day. Her strength, Maya was so strong. Her IQ.
Yeah.
So the minute you did think you had her stopped, she would find the open player. And then on top of that, I mean, not a lot of people talk about this with Maya, but she's arguably like top 3 shooters in WNBA history. just like flat out can shoot. You know, like I'm not
Yeah.
talking numbers or where she ranks with 3-pointers.
Just
It's not that.
ability.
Just like
Mhm.
shooting.
Yeah.
Like just one of the best shooters. The minute it got locked in, like her form was pretty, and the minute it got locked in, that was it.
I love
It
that.
was, and then yeah, I mean, she was just a winner.
Yeah.
She was really incredible.
Yeah, I'm from Gwinnett. So like
Um,
Maya Moore was all the
all
rage.
the
I
rage.
loved me some Maya Moore. So, and I love everything that she has done in her career, whether it was her deciding to, really be an activist and
Mhm.
dedicate herself to that, or just the elite basketball player she was. I love the photo of you and her and Diana, but then you have Paige and I see Sarah. It's all so good. I love it. So major shout out to Maya Moore. Last question, which we ask everybody to end the show, is who was your biggest assist off the court?
Oh, like who helped me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me get this right.
Yeah.
Oh, no brainer, my sister.
Oh.
That's an easy one. And
Yeah.
what's cool about it is her name's Jen. She's 5 years older. So when you're younger,
Mhm.
she wasn't really fucking with me. She wasn't really messing with me. I was kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But I always had this person, obviously her, to look up to, like in my house. And she was incredibly successful in sports, even more successful, like in the classroom, went on to be a lawyer. She opened up her own bookstore just because, why not?
Yeah.
Like she's just
She's
so,
cool.
yeah, she's so
Yeah.
ambitious, so motivated. And I was so lucky to have that type of role model in my house. Like not everybody gets to say that.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward to getting older and that 5 years isn't so much of a gap anymore. And now I get to learn from her in this whole other way, but the relationship has really gotten closer,
I
probably over the
love
course of
that.
like the last 10 years, but then even more so in retirement.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a little more settled, I'm not traveling as much, I get to spend more time.
Mhm.
And it's just, for me, it's like a full circle role model moment that also like evolved with our lives just naturally evolving. And now that we're older, we're even closer. So it's really special.
I love that. That's a beautiful answer. Or see, we are lucky to have you. And the W is lucky to have you. Sports is lucky to have you. It's always so cool for me to see just the different ways that you are impacting everything. If it's with
Thank
your
you.
voice, your actions, you having these roles. I just think that you are an incredibly important figure in all the things that we see right now. And I hope that you also take that time to soak in the impact that you're
Yeah,
having
no,
too.
I really appreciate that. It means a lot
Yeah.
coming from you.
Oh,
I love
stop.
seeing you do all
Thank
your stuff.
you.
I know when I come on here, I'm going to get some hard hitters, but I know you're also going to do it with a lot of care. So I
Oh,
really appreciate that.
of course. And thank you for your time. Always a pleasure. Cap and I, our day is made. We got to chat with Sue Bird. Thank you,
Long
Sue.
Island's finest.